I've been asked on TikTok to do a tutorial for these little goobers that I make. The pattern is really simple, suitable for beginners. There's only one slightly tricky step, but I'll explain that to you when we get there. What you need to know, so if you are a beginner, what you need to know is how to complete a single crochet. And just a note that I will be using US terms rather than UK terms, though obviously I'm from the UK. You need to be able to complete a slip stitch, you need to be able to crochet into a chain, and you need to be able to crochet in the round. I will help you as we go on, but if those are things that you're not familiar with, I would take some time now to go and find some videos on those steps. All that being said, I am aiming this crochet tutorial at beginners. If you are a more experienced crocheter, you can feel free to skip ahead if it's just the pattern that you are after. The pattern is based on the Squishy Stress Pet pattern from notjaded.com, and I will put the link to that in the description for the video. I have made alterations to it, I've changed things slightly, but that is where I found the pattern, the base pattern for these in the first place. They are good for beginners, but to get that squishiness, you need to use chenille yarn. And chenille yarn can be a problem for people beginning to crochet, and it is all very in trend. Like, you see lots of things like this online, on TikTok, on Instagram, and it's all made with this chenille yarn. They look amazing, but it is very difficult to see your stitches. It's very difficult to work with. Depending on the quality, it can break and it sheds, and it can be a real pain. So much so that these two guys are actually permanent residents in my craft room because of chenille issues. So let me show you. So when I have been playing around with this pattern, and it is a really versatile pattern, you can do lots of different things with it, and I will mention a few of the things as we go through the tutorial. But you can see here there's been a split. I was trying to do a tail, and I realized I didn't like how I'd done the tail, so I tried to frog it. For those of you who don't know, frog means to undo, as in rip it, frog. I tried to frog the tail. It wouldn't work because the chenille was stuck to itself, so I decided to cut it out, and I cut the wrong bit. So this poor dude has now got a hole in the bottom of his back, and because of that, I can't really, again, because of chenille yarn, I can't fix it in a way that I'm comfortable putting it up for sale in the shop that I put my stuff in. So yeah, he's here. He's a forever home one. This one as well, you can see as soon as I picked him up what the problem was. When we get into tutorial, you have to leave a really long tail to do the sewing up at the end. I forgot to do that. So I then did a magic knot, which is a way of attaching two pieces of yarn together, started sewing it through, and the knot came apart because it's chenille. And actually that's perfect because you can see, I don't know if my camera will focus, that's all right. You can see that the chenille yarn is made of a thread that runs through the middle that has this chenille fluff attached to it, and it comes off ridiculously easily. And some brands do that worse than others. This one is Flutterby by CK Brett, and this is what we're going to use today in the tutorial. And I'm pretty sure it's Honey Bunny by Hobby. Okay, so if you are a beginner, what I would suggest is, if you learn to crochet full stop, don't start with chenille yarn. Have a go at using something like this. So this is DK 100% acrylic. It's from Hobbycraft in the UK. Light coloured, so you can see your stitches. Not fluffy, not bobbly. One single colour. That's the best place to start, most definitely, with DK rather than the chenille. But for this pattern, it really needs DK. No, sorry, it really needs chenille to get the swoosh, even though that's not brilliant for beginners. The size that you produce is based on your hook size and the yarn you choose. Okay, so there are some, like the burnout blanket yarn, which I've never actually used, is really chunky, so that's going to require a bigger hook, and it's going to produce a bigger goober. The hook size you choose, so these, for these chenille are kind of chunky weight. When you're making amigurumi, which is these kind of small toys, stuffed toys, dolls, etc., it's usually wise to go down a hook size compared to what the yarn actually is recommended. Okay, so yarns have on their little slip that you have around the skein, they have recommended hook sizes. So this for DK here is 4mm. That's the crochet hook there, 4mm. If you're doing amigurumi, it's usually best to go down a hook size. What you do is you want it to make a tight fabric. You don't want holes. Not that that was caused by a too smaller hook, no, too bigger hook. It was caused by cutting the wrong bit. You don't want holes because you're going to stuff this and you don't want the stuffing falling out. So you do tend to, for anything that is filled, any sort of amigurumi, you want to be going down a hook size. Okay. So I guess we'll get on with the tutorial. For this tutorial, you will need the following. Okay, this is my chenille yarn. Okay, like I said, it's I think it's Honey Bunny. I've got a horrible feeling it might be Baby Snuggle, but chenille yarns I use usually from hobby. I've got all the CK Brett Flutterby. There are much cheaper chenille yarns which don't work as well. If you search the internet, you will see horror stories of people trying to do magic circles. We're not doing magic circles today, so don't worry, don't stress out. No magic circles in this. But it doesn't work very well, magic circles. As you pull the yarn through, it can all pull off and it's horrible. So yeah, with chenille yarn, if you are having problems working it, have a look at maybe trying to get something a little bit more expensive, because otherwise, if you get something that's really cheap, you won't be able to do what you want with it, and so then it's just a waste of money. Okay, so that's the yarn we're going to use. You're also going to need some thread. Well, this isn't thread, this is DK 100% cotton, and that's going to be for embroidery. You can use some acrylic if you want. I like using cotton because it is really nice and smooth and it gives like a very, very specific smile. Okay, in a coordinating colour. So I'm doing brown, so I've chosen a beige yarn because that'll show up nicely against the brown, and it's in the brown colour family. You will also need some safety eyes. Now, safety eyes, please do not use these on anything you're intending to give to somebody who is under 36 months. It's not suitable. Babies, toddlers will chew, and they're called safety eyes, but that's a little bit of a misnomer because they will chew it and they will very likely either pull off the back, or what can also happen, which is actually more likely, is they can pull the entire thing through the stitches. So safety eyes must never be used when you are giving plushies, amigurumi to any child under 36 months, so 3 years old, because it is not safe. They are not safety eyes. Options you have, you can use felt and embroider that and sew that on, or you can embroider eyes using yarn. French knots work very well. You can crochet circles and then attach those. There's lots of options. I'm going to be using safety eyes today, but they are not suitable for anybody under 36 months. I can't say that enough. Stitch markers, that's optional, but very, very useful. I have these little cute little locky ones. Locking ones are really, really useful because they stay in place. I'm going to have to replace this one because they do break, and I've just noticed this one has broken. So I'm going to have to stop the video in a minute before I start and actually replace my stitch marker. But what you can use as a stitch marker, you haven't got to go out and buy these things. You can just use a piece of thread that is a contrasting colour. Okay, so you can just use a piece of thread for your stitch marker. You haven't got to go and buy those. You'll need this. This is a tapestry needle, and if you can see, it has a bent tip. They are really, really useful for sewing amigurumi together, sewing them up, embroidering on the surface, all sorts of things. This is a metal one. Whatever needle you use, you must have a big eye because we're going to be wanting to try and fit this size of yarn through the eye to do that. And then finally, again, this is optional. This is just my preference. I struggle with pain in my hands sometimes, so I use a crochet ring. It helps me maintain tension, and it means that the other parts of my hands don't hurt quite so much. I'll be back in a minute when I have replaced my stitch marker. Okay, stitch marker issue resolved, hopefully, as long as it doesn't break during doing this. If you have skipped forward and you didn't want to hear me prattle and you're here for the actual tutorial, welcome back. And we're going to start from here, okay? So we're going to start with a slip knot. And actually, I didn't mention that when I was saying what you need to do, be able to do as a beginner. You're going to start with a slip knot, okay? Now, I'm not going to go through how you do these. If you can't do a slip knot, again, I would suggest going and finding another resource first, then coming back to me later. I will do a video at some point. You may be watching this and the video may exist, but currently I don't have one. So you tighten your slip knot around your crochet hook. I'm using a 4mm. There we go. Thank you, Chloe. Using a 4mm crochet hook. I use the Clover and More hooks or the Clover hooks, because they are fabulous. A bit expensive, but they are fab. So I'm going to pop on my crochet ring, my little snake. And what we're going to do first is we're going to chain 7. Okay, we're going to chain 7 after we've put the slip knot onto our hook. So we're going to grab the yarn, pull through, and then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, you may be able to see one of the issues, or the biggest issue, that there is with using chenille yarn. It is very, very difficult to see, especially if you don't know what you're looking for, the stitches and the chains that you have made. I'm going to carry on with this in a minute, but I just want to show you. Again, if you are experienced crocheter, feel free to skip me on a little bit. Oh, come off, there we go. So this is the same 7 chains, but this time it's done on DK yarn. Okay, it is much clearer where each of those 7 stitches are, 7 chains are. The little V's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, this number 7, that one there, is the first chain from the hook. That next little V is the second, the third, etc. Patterns always, well, not always, that's a lie, will often ask you to do something in the second crochet, second chain from the hook, blah, 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 blah. And with the chenille, as I showed you before, it's very much more difficult to see where each of those individual chains are. So what I'm going to do with the DK is I'm just going to show you the first few steps of this tutorial, and then I'll carry on with the chenille. Okay, because this is the finicky bit, and I don't like this. I don't like crocheting into chains. I avoid it whenever possible. But with the start of this amigurumi, you can't really get yourself around it. There's no way out. So we're going to go through the second chain from the hook. I keep saying crochet. Second chain from the hook, which is this little V here. So we're going to put our hook through the center of that V. We are going to pick up. Now, actually, the other thing about doing amigurumi is there are different sorts of crochet stitches you can do, under yarn under and single crochet, and yarn over single crochet. I'm not going to go through this in detail. Either is fine for this, absolutely fine. I'm intending to do another video about the difference between the two. I'm going to be using yarn under. If you do it the other way, that is absolutely fine. I've actually got a TikTok showing the difference between the two very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to be using yarn under. So I put my yarn under the hook, pull it back through that loop, pick up the yarn again. I do yarn over that time, and then bring it through those 2 loops to complete that single crochet. Okay, now directly from that single crochet, we are going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so again, you can see your first chain, second chain, third chain. Now this time we are again going to do something in the chain from the hook. This time it's going to be the third chain from the hook. So that's 1, 2, 3. So that little V there. So what we're going to do this time is a slip stitch. So we're going to do the same as we did before. Go through the middle of that V, and I'm going to do yarn under again. So picking up the yarn, pulling up a loop. So if you say pull up a loop, that's what it means. Now, with a slip stitch, I don't want this bit coming through again. I actually want to bring this loop back by itself, okay? And that's a slip stitch. So you can see now we've got our single crochet that we did in the second chain from the hook, and then we've got this little nub, which is going to be one of the Goober's legs, coming out from the chain. Now this needs to be reattached. What we're going to do, we're going to go back to our original chain. That's where we worked our first single crochet, and we're going to work our second single crochet through the next V. We've used that V, it's all opened up. We're going to go to this next V here. So again, same, your hook goes through, you pull up, nope, there we go, pull up a loop, and then you bring yarn over and you bring your yarn back through those 2 loops for another single crochet. Okay, and then we do it again with the next chain, another just normal single crochet. So we've gone yarn under and pull through. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Okay, I do get my yarn under and yarn over confused. I'm not going to yabbering enough anyway, so I'm not going to explain where I remember it today. I'm going to do another video on that. So we've done 2 single crochets. We're going to do a third single crochet in the next chain, and we are going to do a 4th single crochet in the next chain. Now, I might jabber a lot, but what I want to make sure is that whoever you are watching this, the tutorial, you understand what each of these bits, because a lot of the tutorials I've seen are just instructions. I want to make sure that as you go, you are understanding what you are building, because that's how you then get to the point where you can design your own amigurumi. It's how you can design anything, because you understand the structure of what you're making in the first place. So at this point, we are symmetrical. So we've got one leg here, and we're going to start creating the other leg coming off this stitch, and we're going to finish it like we did before in that very last V, that very last chain there. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3 chain, same as before, exactly the same. We're going to bring this down. It's really useful at this point as well if you hold on to this part, this loop that's on the hook with your finger here, because you can just keep your tension sorted. Okay, goes down through that bottom V. We're going to bring up a loop. We're not going to touch this again. We're going to then bring that through to complete a slip stitch. We've then got 1 V left, and into that V we are going to just do 1 last single crochet, and that's the first half of the base of our Goober completed. And if you have a look at my finished one, you can see where that is on my finished Goober. Look at that fluff. Right, I'm going to leave you be for a second. I'm going to get the same stop with the same point with the chenille, and then we'll come back. Okay, we're back. Apologies for the change in the lighting. My content stand thing, my light effectively has run out of charge, so I am hoping that the natural light from the window will be enough. I'll see how it looks afterwards. I might change it. We'll see. So this is where we're at the same place now as we were before. This is with the chenille yarn. So this was what we had with the DK, and this is what we have with the chenille. Again, like I said before, it is really difficult to see those stitches. We have got a single crochet here. This is our chain 3 with the slip stitch. This is where we've crocheted back into the chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our second chain 3 with the slip stitch, and then we have crocheted back into the chain on the other side. Okay, so next step. This is still your first round, by the way. Okay, what we're going to do is we're now going to do 6 single crochets back down the other side of the chain. Now you can see there are little loops just here, and we're going to be working into those. Okay, so first one, this is where chenille, I honestly feel my stitches with chenille more than I actually look for them. You can feel where one strand has gone into the other. And this is here, you are going to do your first single crochet, exactly the same as before. We're going to go in, yarn under, we're going to pull up that loop, we're going to yarn over and bring it through those 2 loops. And that's actually in the same chain as you did your first, on the other side of the first chain. Okay, so we've now got, so there's my, yep. So we've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets to put in. Okay, so we've used this loop here. We're going to go to this one here. This is number 2. That's the second single crochet, and then we're going to go through this loop here. That's 3, and then we're going to go 4 and 5, and then finally back where we started, we're going to go through here for 6. Okay, so that is the bottom of our Goober. Okay, now when you're working in the round, you don't attach each round with a slip stitch. Okay, for amigurumi you work continuous spiral, but because of this it is often difficult to see where one round begins and the next round ends, especially with chenille yarn. So with your stitch marker or your contrasting colour of yarn, pop it through. So you can see here, that's the last stitch that I crocheted. So there's the V for that last stitch. I'm going to pop my stitch marker and lock it, or your piece of yarn or your safety pin or whatever you're using. So I know that that was the last stitch of my first round. Okay, so we're going to carry on. Each of these rounds are now going to be 12 crochets. If you do, one of the lovely things about this pattern, if you do go away from 12 crochets at some point, yes, your Goober won't be uniform, but I feel like it gives them character. They get a bit wobbly. So if you're learning, yes, try your best to stay to the 12 stitches. But unless you go really off or really small, don't worry too much about it. Okay, so we've marked the last stitch of our last round, and we're going to find the first stitch of our next round. Okay, and we're going to go under. See, this is where, there we go, found it. So I'm going through going both loops. Okay, none of this is back loop or front loop only, so BLO or FLO. It's normal crochet stitches. Again, this problem with chenille, it's really difficult sometimes to tell that there are 2 actual pieces of yarn there. So that is our first single crochet of our second round. Now this is the tricky bit. I mentioned at the beginning that there are kind of like a tricky bit to this, and it's when we do the arms and the legs. So these are the legs. Now when we did this bit before, we crocheted a single crochet, made the chain, and then crocheted it back into the chain over here, our foundation chain. Now we don't want to put stitches in any of this. We only ever want to stitch, sorry, any of this. We only ever want to stitch into the stitches we've made. Okay, so again, if we're looking for our next actual single crochet, it's coming out of here, and you can feel where it's coming down into the original chain. Now this needs to be on what we call the right side of your work, so you keep this towards you, you move your crochet hook around, and it goes in through that next single crochet. If you struggle with this, when you haven't try with this, get some more stitch markers, and when you've finished these little leg nubs, put a stitch marker in the single crochet you use to attach it back to the chain, because then when you get around to this point, you'll know exactly where you're going. So I'm keeping that little nub I've made towards me, and I am completing, see, single crochet behind that nub, and this is now the outside of our Goober. Okay, so we're going to do another, so that's 1 and 2. We're going to do 3, 4, Again, looking for the stitches. There is, I promise you, a little V there. When I'm working with chenille, I feel it. I can feel the little kind of dip there. That's where I'm going to be working into. Oh, I'm really sorry about this light. It's very annoying. So we've done, come around the back. So we've done one. So we've done 1, 2, 3, and then it's one more single crochet before we have the little leg nub, and then we do the same thing afterwards. So we go around to the back, find that first single crochet that we did when we actually made that leg originally, and we crocheted back into the chain, and then we're going to do a single crochet there. Oh gosh, again, make sure that you're pushing your work this way out. There is a way to remember it. The noodle, which is whatever you use to start your amigurumi, be that with crocheting around a chain or a magic circle, goes in the bowl. The noodle goes in the bowl. That's how you do amigurumi. Otherwise, you're going to end up inside out. And if you've got patterns that involve extra things you've crocheted on, you are going to come a bit unstuck. So we've done our crochet round there, and then we are going to, so we're going to come back to here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crochets to work into. So that is our 7th in total, 8th, 9, oops, actually finish the stitch, 9, 10, 11. We've come to the last stitch of the previous round. Unhook your stitch marker, make sure you know where it came from, and that's 12. Okay, so that is the basis for your little goober. That's his bottom legs and his bum. Okay, and again, if this starts getting annoying, and it does when I do these and I always forget to cut them off, you can cut them off. But make sure when you're doing this as well that you do have a pair of sharp snippers, embroidery scissors, that sort of thing. Okay, so that was the last stitch of our previous round. So we're going to get the stitch marker again, pop that back through that last stitch like that. So we've finished the base of our goober. We've done 2 rounds so far, and we're about to start the 3rd. Got a stitch marker in here, okay, to show the last stitch of the previous round, and we are going to do 4 of those. So we've done 1 already. Again, this is just my very, very low-tech way of keeping track of the rows that I've done. Grab anything that's around. And we're again going to go round for 12, so 12 stitches, single crochet. So 1, 2, again feeling for the stitches. We've worked that stitch there. That's where the stitch we've just made is coming out of that previous round. Okay, then we're going to do here. Okay, and then another one, and another into there, and then we're going to go into the single crochet that kind of pulled the crochet around the leg nub. Oops, the leg nub together. This is another thing that chenille does. It is very slippy and it will slip off. So as I was saying, we can go into that single crochet there. Okay. So that's another single crochet, and then another. So we're going to be in 12 in total. Another there, another there, and then next one will be 11. So 11 crochets. We're going to take out our stitch marker. Make sure it doesn't get confused with the stitch markers I'm using to keep track of my rows, and I'm going to go through the last stitch of my previous round, and I'm going to pop the stitch marker in to tell me where I finished the previous round. See? Well, we finished a row. I'm going to pop this stitch marker in, which means we've got 2 more rows left, and then we'll go again. So, oops. And we're building up the body of the Goober at this point. So 1, 2, looking for those little dips in the chenille. So there's one there. There's 2 little V that is on top, which is quite difficult to see in the chenille. Better ways to look for the little dip. You can feel it with your fingers. So there's another one there, and another one there. Doing single crochets all the way around. It is also, with chenille yarn, a bit of a fight sometimes to get it through, because it sticks very well to itself, and we're using, so this is 4mm, we're using a much smaller hook than is recommended for this yarn if you were doing, say, a blanket or something out of it. Let's see if I can do this without breaking it. Right, so we've got one pink stitch marker down there. I've got one more round to go for the main part of his body. Okay, so put the red one back in. That was the last stitch of a previous round. One more round until we can start, or we can put in his arms. So 1, 2, 3, 4. These can be done in colourful yarns. A lot of mine that I do are in all sorts of different colourful yarns. The brown's quite cute though, because it does make it look a bit like a teddy bear. And when we actually get to the point where we sew him up, they can take on all sorts of different animals. I did one that looked like an owl by accident. And the sewing up and how you put the mouth on and where you position the eyes, that kind of gives them some character. And so they're not always actually bears. Okay, so that is our 4th round. So our last, we can get rid of our last pink stitch marker. That can go away. And we'll put our red back in. Now, this is where we're going to do some more of those nubs. And I'm going to show you how to do them with the chenille. Okay, we're going to do some more nubs and I'll show you how to do it with the chenille. So we've got the bottom of our goober already. And we're going to do the same idea for the arms as we did for his feet. Now, it's up to you how you do this. And this is what I was saying about getting you guys to understand how you're building this. So we're going to go into this next stitch. You could, if you wanted to, start producing the arm earlier. That would put the arms on the side, sticking out from the side. I like with mine, and this is how it's different from the pattern that I based this on, I like mine facing forwards. Okay, so we're going to do 1 single crochet. Okay, and if we think about what we did with the feet, it's this next crochet here that we're going to be bringing that 3 chain and slip knot into, so the whole thing will be pushed forwards. So we've done 1, 2, 3 chains. So chenille yarn, 1, 2, 3 chains. First from the hook, second from the hook, third from the hook. So much more difficult to see than it was in the DK, the purple DK that I showed at the beginning. We're going to find that 3rd chain and we're going to pop our hook through. We're going to pull up a loop, and because it's a slip knot, we're going to leave this alone and we're going to pull through that final loop. Okay, now be careful. I've twisted this, and I always do twist these, so you have to make sure you bring your stitch marker to the back and your back at the front of your goober, because again it's this stitch that we're going to be going into. So we're going to put into this stitch and we're going to do a single crochet. Okay, so that's one of our little goober's arms. We've done 1, we're going to do 2 and then 3. Again, find where I'm going. 3 is there. Okay, so this little arm is there. Now we need to have a look at where we want to put the other arm. I'm going to do 4 stitches. Okay, 4 single crochets across the front, and we're then, because we're going to want him symmetrical, you don't have to have him symmetrical, but we're then going to do our 1, 2, 3 chains. Okay, do 3 chains, and we're going to do slip stitch into the 3rd chain. 1, 2, 3. So into this here. Okay, So my hook goes in between that V, it pulls up a loop, doesn't do that, but instead brings that loop I just made through the loop on my hook. That's your slip stitch. Then I'm going to pop into the next single crochet from the row below, and we're going to finish off and just check at this point that he is nice and symmetrical. So those two little nubs, his arms, are coming out from the same place on the body. What I'm going to do is I'm actually, at this point, and I've talked about this before, I'm going to pop a stitch marker just into that crochet, single crochet that I made. I'm not trying not to break it, just so I know when I'm going around like we did at the beginning, just so I know where that single crochet I have to go into after having gone over the arm. And actually, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, oh, that's a broken one. Oh, I'm going to grab another one. Go on. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm just going to pop a stitch marker into here, just so I know that when I go over these arms in a minute, I'm going to know where I'm going to be crocheting into. Okay, it looks a bit weird, but it's all good. So we're going to carry on like we did before. We are going to try and untangle ourselves. That's better. And I'm going to go into this next single crochet here. So I'm going to continue again with 12 crochets all the way around, doing yarn under. You can do yarn over. Oops, you can do yarn over if you wish. Just decide which one you prefer. Yarn under tends to give a denser fabric, which works well for amigurumi. It also makes them a bit smaller, and I think it's actually a bit more yarn efficient. Uses less yarn, I think. So that's come to the end of that round. So we've done 12 single crochets round with our two little arm nubs. Okay, so we're going to do now 2 rounds. So I'm going to grab 2 random things. I'm going to use a clip, and I'm going to use one of my broken stitch markers because I have plenty of them. And we're going to carry on. So we're going to do the first single crochet, no problem. Okay, and that's where, so that's our first single crochet, and then we are going to just undo that, so you can see that's where with the single crochet there. This, and you can feel it, this is where that chain starts, and so the next stitch we need to work into is the one you can see. It's got the yellow stitch marker through it. So I'm just going to pop that out, remember where it was, take my hook round the back of that little nub, pull that through, and then finish my stitch. Okay, so that stitch has been worked across the back of that nub, so the nub is pointing to the right side of the work, the front half of the work. So we're going to do 1, so that is number 3 of the round, 4, and then 5. Okay, so we've come to where we made the nub in the last round. We've marked the single crochet on the other side of the nub already, so we know where that's going to be. We can take that out and drop it and make sure we know where it was originally. So again, I'm going to show you this again. So I've just finished a single crochet. I'm going to push my hook while keeping that loop on my hook, and I'm going to push it through where that stitch marker was. I'm going to pick up a loop, yarn under, yarn over, and then I've now got his little arm there. And I'm going to continue this round in the same way. Okay, so 12 single crochets, and then I'm going to pop up the red one, which is the end of my round, and I'm going to finish the round. Okay, so why have I got oh, I know why, that's fine. So just on that one round, I've got one more round left to do before I do something else. So I'm going to find my next stitch, which is here. I'm going to take that through, single crochet, just pull this little arm nub forwards, and you can see there or I can feel, if you're working with chenille, you can feel the hole in which you're going to put your single crochet through. And then we're going to carry on with the rest. Okay, so I've finished those 2 rounds, which means I can get rid of this. And we're nearly finished. We've only got 1 round left. And I did say at the beginning of the video that size of your goober is very much based on the hook that you use, and then obviously the yarn. So this dude, as you can see, it's also very, very, very dense because it's yarn under. He was a 4mm hook. The one I showed you earlier is actually 4.5 or no, yeah, 4.5 or 5. So it really does make a difference. We'll compare them at the end. So this is your last round. After this, we're going to be doing decorating and such. Now looking at rounds, that row here, that's the side of the stitches there. That was the row that we went round the tops of these little arm nubs. Then we've got the last row that I've just completed off camera. Okay, so what we're going to do now is the ears. The ears are made very similarly to the arms and the legs, but we're not going to do a slip stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. So I'm going to do my ears. So the ears, where the legs and the arms come up forwards, I always like the ears to come out more to the sides. Okay, so I'm going to do 1 single crochet, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, chain 3. Now I'm not going to do a slip stitch through that 3rd chain this time. I'm actually going to do a single crochet. So I'm going to put through, so that 3rd chain, so 1, 2, 3, through that 3rd chain, come here. I'm going to pull up a loop, and rather than bringing that loop back through the loop on my hook, I'm going to pull up another loop and pull that through both of them. Okay, and then I'm going to find my next single crochet, which is there, and pop a single crochet in there. Okay, so that is one of the ears. Now you should be able to see that that ear there is much bigger than the little arm nubs and legs. Okay, the arm nubs and legs were chain 3 and then a slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the hook. This is the same, but instead of slip stitch, we did a single crochet. It gives you a bigger kind of pointy out, like sticky out bit. If you wanted to, if you ever got this yourself, you could change these into this instead and actually have bigger arms and bigger feet. It is completely up to you. This is how versatile this actual pattern is. So we're going to go across the front. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And so we want him to be symmetrical. So we've done 4 across the front. So I'm going to now do 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to move my yarn, go grab some more yarn, move that out of the way. So again, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3rd from the hook, excuse me, and I'm going to pull up a loop. Not going to pull this one through this time. I'm not going to pull this through that loop. I'm going to pull up another loop and pull up through both to complete the single crochet. Go back to my original round, find my next single crochet from the previous round, and single crochet into there, like that. And then I'm going to finish off the rest of this round. Again, 12 stitches in total. Okay, 12 stitches in total, like that. And then I've got my last stitch there. I can get rid of that, and it didn't break, thank goodness. And I'm going to do one last into there. Okay, so you've now got the body of your little goober. To finish this off, I'm just going to do into the next stitch, I'm going to pull my yarn through. I am going to do a slip stitch, and then I'm going to pull and pull and pull and pull, and I am going to get my little pair of embroidery scissors, and I'm going to snip it off, pull it all the way through, and that's tied off your work. Okay, and I've left very, very long
tail for sewing. Now, what we need to do next is give him some eyes and some personality. Actually, he's got a lot of personality already. Okay. Now, eyes. I usually use for my Goobers these 10mm safety eyes. They are coloured with the lighting I've got. I don't know whether you can see that. These are brown. Choose eyes that match the yarn that you've used or contrast with it or whatever you fancy. You can use different size. These are 10, like I said. It's up to you. If you make really small ones, you can go small with the eyes. You can use plain black ones. You can use glitter ones. It's entirely up to you. It's your project. To put these in, again, I will show you where I put them for mine. But when you start making, if you start making these, do what you want. Find out different ways that work for you. Try different things. See what they come out like. But I would say, put them between. So this was the top row here. That's our top round, our last round here. So that bit's the top of the stitch and that's bit's the bottom of the stitch. So the whole of that is one round. And here you can see your second round because the top of the stitches disappears when you put another round on top. Okay, so that's our first round, that's our second round. Eyes, I usually, and I would say, put them between the first and second rounds and have them so that they are 2 stitches apart. But if your Goober that you have created looks better with the eyes further apart, looks better with the eyes closer together, you do what you want. Nice thing about this is that you can move, until you've obviously put them in place, you can move them around where you would like. Okay, you can move them further apart, you can do all sorts of things, whatever you'd like. So that's where I'm going to put mine for this one. Then we're going to look at the backs. That's the back safety eye. We're going to grab a back for the safety eye and pop that in, and I'm going to get it to click. If you can, click it. 2 clicks. That makes it nice and secure. You may find at this point you've got a little bit of a hole here and a little bit of a hole here. If they really bug you, you can sew them up later. And just put it when you're doing when we sew it up, you could do that. But the way that I sew at the top tends to help with that automatically. So there's a second safety eye. There we go. And it looks like a raccoon or something. Okay, so last thing to do before we start stuffing is to give him mouth. Again, this is up to you. I tend to, so this dude, I said was a little bit bigger. He has his mouth just right here. If you want to move it up, move it down. If you don't want to give it a mouth, you haven't got to follow everything that I say. Okay, you don't have to follow every single thing that I am telling you. Okay, so we've got a length of cotton, 100% cotton, DK I think. I'm going to pop that onto my tapestry needle and I'm going to find a suitable place to put his mouth. Now, with the one that I've done here, because he's come out a bit smaller, there isn't room here between his eyes to pop in the mouth. So for him, I'm going to put the mouth a little bit further down. Okay, so his mouth is going to go there. Again, gives him a different look. I like it. I think he is adorable. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this upside down and I'm going to grab 2 ends of the cotton DK I've used and I'm going to tie a double knot. Now when I tie this double knot, I'm not going to do it too tight because otherwise if I pull this too tight, his little mouth is going to disappear in all the fluffiness of the chenille yarn. We don't want that. We want to be able to see his mouth. At the same time, we don't want it too loose because we don't want to it hanging out the front and just getting all droopy and just not looking right. So we're going to tie a double knot inside that gives us a decent amount of yarn on the outside, but not too loose. Okay, there's our little dude. So I'm going to trim these. Don't trim them too short, but at the same time, you can take them quite short because you don't want, when you start stuffing, you don't want, so there's the inside, so there's the
very spiky safety eyes, and there is the knot that is for his mouth, because you don't want to have, when you start stuffing, it catch on those threads and then it will pull the mouth again tighter into the crochet. I am using for stuffing some polyfill. Yeah, polyester. I get this from a local craft shop. You will always usually need more, actually use more than you think you will when you stuff these. With these, don't overstuff, because you do want squidginess, and the chenille yarn does give you a certain amount of squidgy when it comes to these little goobers. So I'm going to start to stuff. The thing with polyfilm is do it little by little. Don't just jam as much as you think you will need in there straight away. Okay, and use the end, not that end because you'll pick up all the polyfill and it will come out. I've done that before. Use the end of a crochet hook just to press it down and then take another bit. So don't stuff it all in at once. Do it bit by bit. It's not as much of a problem with shapes like this, where you've got something that's quite cylindrical and quite uniform. But when you are working with something that's more detailed and has got more smaller bits to fill, then you definitely need to take it step by step when you are filling them. As you go, have a feel, make sure that you've got the right level of squishiness that you would like. Obviously, the more you pack it in, the less squishy it will be, but the better it'll keep its shape. Okay, I really like him. So I'm going to do one last one, I think. Yeah. Okay, so that is our little goober, very, very nearly completed. Now, before you sew him up, what I tend to do is I'm just grabbing the back of the safety eyes there and just pulling them up a little bit because they'll have been pushed down. I'm also making sure they are in the polyfill. Now, before you sew up, just push your polyfill down a little bit because we're going to be sewing, whip stitching these two edges together, and you don't want any of the polyfill coming up. Again, another problem with chenille is the fact that it can pick up the polyfill quite easily. So when you start sewing through the polyfill, it collects bits of it. So this is why I was saying before, your tapestry needle needs to have a big eye so you can fit your yarn through it. Okay, a normal sewing needle will not suffice. It's not the end of the world if you don't have a bent tip, but it is super useful. So you're now going to sew up. You can see at the top of my little dude that there are a series of those little V's. That's the last of the stitches that we did. You're going to take your needle and you're going to work it through those stitches so they all line up to the tops of the stitches. Okay, and we're going to whip stitch. So that's going to be my first one. I've just taken it from where we did that slip stitch just to finish it off and tie it off. And I've taken it through the front of the ear and it's now come out at the front here. I'm again going to check. I'm going to keep him reasonably symmetrical, and I'm going to find the next stitch at the back, find a V, there we go, find a V to go through, come through, same V at, oops, same V at the front, and whip stitch. So the yarn goes over the top like this, and I'm going to take it back again, and I'm going to find the V, find, so do that again, find the V at the back, find the V at the front, and oops, I'm going to pull, try not to get the rest of him caught in it, and I'm going to pull that tight. I'm going to do this again. So we're nearly at the second ear. Sorry about the light. Tried to fix it, but it wasn't having any of it. Then that's going to come through the front, and we're going to pull that back. Now, at this point, what I tend to do, again, as long as he is fully sewn up, how you sew him up is kind of up to you. So what I've done here is the next stitch will be that single on the other side of the ear. I've taken that through to the back to the not coordinated, the relevant stitch on the side. Okay, and then I'm just going to pull it there. Okay, just you could if you wanted to do that on the other side. You give them a little eyebrow, some little eyebrows. Pull that bit tighter, and then I just check that I haven't left any holes in the top where we can end up getting polyfill coming out. Okay, so I'm just going to make a few more stitches just to make absolutely sure that those gaps where we could lose polyfiller are actually sorted. Now, what you can do, if there is something on your Goober that you want to change, you can use this tail to do it. What I sometimes do is if I don't like placement of foot or placement of an arm or an ear, I can use this to alter where they sit. And the way you do this, and I'll show you because I just want to put a quick stitch on this other side. So I'm going to take the arm back through the body, okay, in through a stitch, and I can take it then to a place in the Goober where it can just pop back out again. You see that? So I can just then pull my yarn through there, coming back to the side. There we go. See? Told you, polyfill. So the yarn is really, really good at picking up that fluffy polyfill in the middle. And so I've pulled it through to the other side. Just want to put an extra stitch in just to make sure this hole is properly closed, like that. Okay, so I didn't need to cut it, didn't need to put it back into the amigurumi. I can just take it through the middle. Then what you want to do finally is you want to make sure that that yarn is not going to come back out. Okay, so you're going to want to take it through the amigurumi, through the Goober, like we did before when I was moving it around to alter things. And I'm going to take it like this, and I'm going to take it to the other side. Okay, the other side of the body, and then just pull that through, not ever so tight, but just tight enough so that stitch disappears. Okay, then I'm going to take this and I'm going to do the same thing and go back up again. Okay, and I'm going to come out somewhere that's nice and strong. Okay, so I didn't come up through that nub there, and I'm going to pull that tight again. Just pull it not so tight that it changes the shape of the crochet, but tight enough that there isn't a loop sticking out. Okay, then snip that off. Now, when you do this, snip as close as you can to the body, and then you can see just a little bit of fluff coming off the end of that thread of yarn, or that piece of yarn that we've just used to sew it up. Okay. And there you go. That is a Goober. And like I said, this pattern is really versatile. I've used it to make frogs by adding long legs. I've made them with bigger feet and bigger feet and bigger arms. I've tried adding tails. So yeah, as a base pattern for all sorts of experiments, it's a really good one. I hope you enjoyed that. Subscribe if you want to see more. There will be more videos coming soon. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. See you next time. Thank you.